Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. My next guest tonight is a guy I've known for a while. Great at what he does. Great broadcaster. He's a sports analyst for CBS Sports and WFAN. Talk a little college hoops, which is probably something you like talking about the most. I don't know. We'll find out. Joey Wahler's here. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Artie. John.
Do you like college hoops?
Love it.
Yeah. Is that your favorite, you think?
I think college basketball, NBA, and baseball. I'm a Seton Hall alum, so big day for me with the win over Nova today.
I love Seton Hall. I'm a Seton Hall fan.
Is that right?
Yeah, ever since heartbreaking Michigan loss in '89,
Sure.
man. I was told at the beginning of the show, I brought it up. Ramil Robinson was not fouled.
Yeah. That's when I was in school.
Do you remember that Ramil Robinson situation?
Listen, I'll never forget it. As a matter of fact, my 5 years at Seton Hall, because I was a fifth-year senior, after all, who wasn't, right?
Yeah.
I was there actually 4.5 years. And during my 5 years, when I got there, Seton Hall was awful under P.J. Carlesimo. And my 5 years...
P.J. was there a while. He turned it around.
Sure. So when I got there, it was before he had turned it around. Our first year, we went to the NIT. Second year to the NCAAs for the first time ever. Third year... '89, we go to the championship game, which you're talking about, lose to Michigan in overtime. Fourth year, lose everybody.
Danny Calandrillo, remember him?
Well, he was a little before me.
Okay.
And then fifth year, we come back and go to the NCAAs again. So PJ always gets the credit for turning the program around, but before I got there, we had done absolutely nothing.
You feel you are some sort of good luck charm.
Somehow, I've been overlooked, yes.
Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay. And how'd you go to Seton Hall? You came over to Jersey to go to South Orange.
Yeah, you know what? I picked a school for college, actually, very much the way an athlete would. I was a horrible athlete, but I already knew for years by then that I wanted to be in broadcasting.
Right.
I picked Seton Hall because it was close by.
Okay.
And because I wanted to call Big East basketball games on the student radio station.
Good idea.
Yeah, and I thought at the time, even if they stunk, they're in the Big East.
They always had a good radio station, too, Seton Hall.
Great radio station, WSO-UFM, little plug.
Yeah, it was fun listening to that, yeah.
Yeah, and so I figured even if they stunk, I'm doing Big East basketball.
Right.
And even if they're losing, we're playing Georgetown, we're playing Syracuse.
Right, that was the big deal about the Big East. It was such a great conference that's the way to get into big-time basketball.
Sure, and so now, of course, it's a completely different Big East this year. New era, no more Syracuse and UConn and Louisville and all the rest. So it was interesting to see over the last couple of days, I think, the new Big East tournament, which remains at the Garden with this new look lineup of teams.
I'm going tomorrow. After, my uncles called me. We always went back in the day, and after Seton Hall won, they said, got time before your show, and I'm going. I'm going to the Garden tomorrow. I can't wait.
And, I got to tell you, Seton Hall's had a bad year.
Yeah.
But to knock off Villanova today at the Garden, the number 3 team in the country, the number 1 seed in the tournament, a huge loss for Nova because they were hoping to get a number 1 seed.
Think about that. Forget the tournament, number 3 in the country, and a number 1 seed. Now that's gone probably, right? I mean,
sure.
Yeah.
And, I got the feeling, no question, as the game went on and the upset possibility became greater for the Hall, it seemed like everybody I knew was watching this game, which was interesting to me because after all the talk going in, it's not the same, the Big East is watered down. When those lights go on at the Garden, everybody's watching.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it really is.
People talk about Knick games at the Garden, of course, Ranger games, big-time fights, concerts, but the Seton Hall games and the St. John games, the Big East tournament in general I remember '84 Syracuse Georgetown with the Pearl Robins. I mean, I went to that. My uncles, God bless them, they really had a big deal in influencing me into getting into that. But once I got in, I was hooked.
Yeah, you mentioned Pearl Washington, and it's interesting. He's a guy who had a great tournament in the Big East tournament at the Garden.
Ice water in his veins with the last shot.
Yeah, great clutch player.
Yeah.
Not the greatest athlete, but had a way of sort of squirming his way into the lane and getting through big people to finish. Yep. And, they showed him the other night at one of the games. I don't know if it was one of the Big East games or a Knick game the other night. And that 1 week or several days at the Garden 20-odd years ago, he's still, he's been through trials and tribulations. Been through early 80s, been through trials and tribulations in his life, and he's still, it's like that's Pearl Washington, the guy who lit up the Garden. That's all you have to do.
He's probably homeless now, right? What's happened?
Well, he's been, I think at one point he either was or was close. He had some addiction problems and financial problems, but he's really come back strong from what I understand in recent years.
It's because he's one of those guys who was a great college player, couldn't make it in the pros. Yeah. But you're right, clutch, and I'm glad he's doing okay. So what are you thinking about Seton Hall's chances tomorrow?
Well, now they play Providence. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that they had just squeaked by Butler.
Right.
a team that finished last in the Big East. They got by them by a point on the first night in what I call the session of death on Wednesday night, because you had Butler, Seton Hall, and a down Georgetown team playing DePaul.
Yeah, you got to sit through those games for that.
Right. So even though it's the new Big East, still have the old death session from the other conference.
That's true.
And then Seton Hall, after playing a game on Wednesday night, had to come back at noon today on, like 14 hours in between.
Hard to do.
Now they have to think about what they've done and what they're looking to do tomorrow. And they'll play Providence. It'll be interesting to see now how they respond with a little more time under their belt.
Now, if they beat Villanova, they can beat anybody there. So what the hell? I mean, why not?
Don't you think that Villanova game was more Villanova lost it more so than Seton Hall won it? Well, I mean, just by playing terrible basketball and missing every shot, every free throw that they possibly could.
Yeah, I think you're right that I think both teams for much of the game played poorly. But Seton Hall played good D. They at least made it difficult for Villanova to shoot their threes. They were awful from three, where they're normally pretty good. And both teams, you're right, I think each of them down the stretch kind of, made some bonehead plays here. You take it, no, you take it. And then kid Sterling Gibbs, let's give him his props, from North Jersey, Scotch Plains, Seton Hall Prep.
Yeah, there you go, Scotch Plains,
and,
right next to me.
Hits a buzzer beater, and right away people started evoking memories of Oliver Taylor, a Seton Hall guard who had a couple of buzzer beaters in the Big East tournament about 20-some-odd years ago.
Right.
Again, a guy, you do it once, he could be working in a sneaker circus somewhere today. And even I don't know if they even still have Sneaker Circus. The first place that came to mind. But, there's
a great reference. Don't go back on it.
Thank you.
Commit.
I got to sell it, right?
Yeah.
I learned from a great comedian. But, Artie, I think at the same time, although the upset was great and the atmosphere was great, it is a new Big East. And, you look around and no question, it's not exactly the same.
Who's in the Big East? List the teams, because I'm not even sure of every team. Who's exactly in there?
So you have the leftover, quote-unquote, Catholic schools, right?
Yeah.
Seton Hall, St. John's, Providence, Villanova, Georgetown.
They were all there for years.
Marquette.
Okay, Marquette's new.
And then you've got, Marquette's old.
Yeah, but I mean, they were never in the Big East back in the 80s.
No.
Right.
Not an original Big East team, but have done well in recent years since coming into the Big East. You got the three new teams, which are Butler, Xavier, Creighton. And the interesting thing about those three is
Creighton's always tough.
Yeah, Creighton's been very good for years. They have this Doug McDermott, who's unbelievable. Probably going to be player of the year in college basketball. Great scorer.
Yeah.
Kind of a throwback guy at 6'8", moves without the ball, can score
they're
from all
a great
angles.
basketball school, Creighton.
Yeah, and the thing about, Creighton is in Omaha, Nebraska. You've got Xavier from, Ohio, from the Cincinnati area.
Right.
And you've got Butler, which, of course, has built up the great tradition in recent years with the two unexpected Cinderella trips to the national finals. These teams bring fans.
Yeah.
It's
and DePaul.
Oh, did I leave out DePaul, Dan?
Yes, you did.
And aren't they from Chicago?
Yes, they are.
That's a bad move by me.
That's right.
Especially when I need you to be booked on the show.
I've done stand-up at DePaul over the years ago. I did 99, I think. And I almost banged a very hot chick. But anyway.
Why are they still called the Big East?
Well, you know what? It's interesting. It's a great question because even though it's not the same team,
brand name,
they fought like hell to keep the name and to keep the Garden for the tournament. Although, you look around at the new lineup of teams, and when the most intimidating mascot is the Providence Friar.
Yeah, that is an odd. The Friar thing is, they really, they're sticking with it. I get it, but the Friar is an odd thing. It doesn't evoke like a lot of enthusiasm or fear. Yeah, the Friar.
A mascot in a monk's outfit.
Friar Tuck.
Marching around the Garden.
The 89 Seton Hall team, do you know anything about what happened to those guys? Like, I know Morton had some time in the NBA. I know Ramos got into a bad car accident.
Right.
Do you know anything about Ramos? Is he doing okay? Do you follow those guys?
Ramon Ramos was a big story at the time. He was a guy from Puerto Rico, came over and was one of Seton Hall's main players on that team in '89 that went to the national championship game. Signed
with Portland.
With Portland, very nice.
Yes.
As a free agent, early in the season, got into a one-car accident on a wet road or something in the middle of the night. Has never been the same since.
Right.
And it's sad because it so happens, you bring up Ramon Ramos, when I got to Seton Hall as a student and wanted to be part of the student media, he was the first athlete that I ever interviewed in my life after having wanted to do this since I was 12. Guy was like 6'8", 250. He was from Puerto Rico, soft, gentle giant.
This is post-accident?
This is pre-accident.
Okay.
My first year in school.
Yeah,
he was a couple years ahead of me.
Right.
And I can still remember, it's funny the things you remember years ago. I can still remember his big Gulliver-like hands
He was
enveloping
a big guy.
Yeah. And such a nice guy. And he actually was from Puerto Rico, spoke broken English, and somehow had a GPA of over 3 in accounting. And never got his degree, always intended to come back and get his last several credits, and then wound up being debilitated, partially for the rest of his life in that accident. But a lot of those guys have done well. You may remember Andrew Gaze.
He was 35 years old.
Yes.
But he was 27 or 28, Australian guy.
Right.
There was always like rumors, there was some shady things going on.
Correct.
But God, when that guy got hot from 3 points, Seton Hall won.
Yeah, and he went on to a long career playing professionally in Australia, where he was from. His dad had been the national coach there for years, and he was just back recently because I think one of his kids was playing in some kind of a tournament. I don't know if it was basketball, but somewhere in the area. But, those guys are...
Jerry Walker.
Jerry Walker runs a foundation over in New Jersey, in Jersey City, where he's from.
Right.
Does very well with that, helping kids. He's pretty much spent his whole post-college life doing that. And, some of those guys have really done well. And, again, just a beloved team.
It was.
And as a fellow Jersey guy, because even though I'm from Brooklyn, my family, it so happens, moved to Jersey while I was at Seton Hall. So I've been in Jersey for
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've been in Jersey for over 20 years now. Well, originally moved to Manalapan. Oh. Now I'm in more central Jersey.
Right.
And, as a Jersey guy that went to Seton Hall, I mean, that team is, even for people that weren't Seton Hall people, that team is beloved even years later.
They were an underdog team that came out of nowhere, South Orange, New Jersey, not a glamorous campus. P.J. Carlissimo, no one knew, no big-name guys. And I'm trying to remember every team they beat, but they had to go through, they beat Duke, they beat Arizona, they beat UNLV on their way to get
Indiana.
To Michigan. And Indiana.
Think about those 4 you just mentioned.
Yeah, Indiana, UNLV, Duke, and
Michigan.
And Michigan. They lost to Michigan, yeah. But that they beat great. I think in the Final Four they beat Duke.
Right.
And
came from way down.
UNLV was a year away from being that dominant team. Yeah, they were a team that everybody loved. And again, 1 point. 1 point. You must have been going crazy for that.
Oh, it was such a wild ride because it was so unexpected. People thought they would be pretty good that year.
Right.
But nobody expected that.
Right.
And, calling the games for the student radio station. I'll tell you a quick P.J. Carlissimo story. And, of course, younger people know him more as an NBA coach. Came back, coached the Nets on an interim basis
guy who
last year.
Latrell Sprewell strangled.
The strangulation thing with Latrell Sprewell.
That's how I'll fondly remember him.
Right. But, the Sprewell thing, on a serious note, it really overshadowed what PJ's
I understand. Sure.
reputation had been. Because, again, Jersey people know that PJ is even today, he may be the most popular, he's sitting it out this year as far as coaching goes, always for years considered maybe the most popular coach in the NBA in terms of just as a person is concerned. And I can still remember, I'll tell you another quick one. First interview I ever did with a big-time coach was PJ in school, first year, first month of the school year. I go to the basketball office. They had a longtime secretary, this woman, Marianne Fritzen. She'd been there for years. I still remember, 10 o'clock appointment on a Monday morning. I'm interviewing P.J. Carlissimo. Now, P.J. is not yet P.J. because Seton Hall's not yet Seton Hall.
Right.
But he's my first Division I coach that I'm ever interviewing. And I go in, and I tell the secretary I'm there, and she says, Coach is running a little late, have a seat. The phone rings, and I can tell she's talking to P.J., and he's telling her that he's going to be in any second. And she puts down the phone, and she says to me, hey, Joey, it's Coach. And I heard her remind him that there's a kid from the Setonian, the school paper, that's here to see you. I had never met him, of course. Yeah. And she says, Joey, Coach is on the phone. He said he's stopping at the deli. He wants to know if you want anything. And that's PJ.
Right.
It's just the way he's always been. I don't remember what I got.
Did you order something?
I think I did. I think
Why
I was betwixt and between. I felt it was I had to order something.
A lot of good delis around there, too.
Yeah.
Well, now, unfortunately, you're stick around for another segment. Can you stick around for one more segment? I know you got to have a big medical thing tomorrow.
Listen, anything I can do to fill time between now and then.
You're having surgery and you can't drink.
Yes. Are we going to get into that?
Well, if you want to.
No, absolutely. Maybe you have some advice for me. Hernia.
Well, you have a hernia operation.
Right. Most guys, we can talk about this. Most guys do not know, as I've discovered, the irony about hernia. It is the most common male surgery there is. And yet you ask most guys, young, old, anywhere in between, if they haven't had it done, guys do not know what a hernia is. You know what a hernia is?
Yeah.
Well, takes care of that argument.
He was.
He's a former athlete.
Yeah.
Do you know what a hernia is?
It's got something to do with you're too effeminate or something.
The Artie Lange Show, weeknights on Audience, only on DirecTV.